Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, everybody. Today is October 13th, and this is the Libra episode for Planet Buzz. And we're looking at Pluto. It's a long cycle. We've had 16 years in it, and we're nearing the end. Pluto just went direct. I know I'm telling you a few of the highlights. And we have a dynamic panel here with, of course, and we'll find out pretty quick who they are. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will begin because we are ready now for Planet Buzz.
Focusing on perspectives of pattern planet cycle relationships and understanding their archetypal energy consciousness, reflecting through history, current events, mythology, and philosophical questions, these are the members of Planet Buzz.
I'm Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
And I'm Dr. Laura Tad. I work as a spiritually oriented psychological astrologer with students and clients around the world. As a counselor, writer, and educator, I love helping people recognize their inner strengths, take advantage of auspicious moments, and navigate times of challenge with greater ease. On my own podcast, Mythic Sky Storytime, I discuss astrology, mythology, and actualizing our full potential. Learn more at mythicsky.com.
Plus, a special guest who we will introduce in just a short moment.
And as the ancient Hermetic Code reveals,
as below, so above. As above, so below.
Yes. Hi, Laura.
Hi, it's good to be back.
It is. I must say, I really appreciate and enjoy these panels with you. You had such everything, perspective. And I love your question. What must we do that's unfinished? I think that's going to be a theme as we look at this Pluto with our special guest. So let's get right to him. It is Sean Kelly. And Sean's been on different panels, but Sean is a speaker, executive, motivational leadership, and he's focused on digital business since, as it says, 1998. That's 30 years, thank you. And he's worked with many renowned astrologers, Kelly Fox, Jan Spiller, Jeff Jowers, and Rick Levine with tarot, which he actually helped drive their business. So I thank you. It's always a pleasure. And, of course, you have your own now, evolutionaryastro.com, that people can find you. And anyway, we're glad to have you. Yeah, it's good.
Thank you. It's great to be here, especially with two awesome people. Thank you.
Well, listening to you two chat will be like an instruction in itself. So let's look at this, the archetype of Pluto, which here is in a vase or a bowl rather with Persephone, his wife, that he brought to the underworld, but still Pluto as its energy, consciousness, and of course in Capricorn, the sea goat. Anybody? I can begin. I can say that the sea goat, it's most intriguing, I think, because it goes from the floor up to the ocean to the very top of the mountains in this wonderful visionary, which I think we overlook when it comes to Capricorn. It's not just the material goals that we set, but it's that vision from behind it that seeks to get to the top so it can look around and see what happens.
Well, yeah, and there's a, even though we associate Pluto or the archetype about transformation, there's a transformative quality to that fish goat, right? It's itself in some form of evolution. And you could argue that it's either way. Either it's evolving into a sea animal or into a land animal. It could go either way. Who's to say what? There's not necessarily a hierarchy. It's just there's this transformation that's happening rather than evolution, right? But transformation that's happening.
Shape-shifting. Thank you, Laura. You're right.
Yeah, being a cardinal sign, it is ushering in the season of winter. It's the sudden shift from fall to winter, just like Aries for spring and Cancer for summer and Libra for fall. Capricorn brings that winter season into focus, and really, the ambition of that sign, climbing the mountain, getting to the top of things, and it's like that achievement opens that door to evolution with Aquarius. And here we are talking, speaking to this final purge of that before we can really embrace Aquarius. It's quite a time to be alive. I'll say that.
I'm glad you both brought up this whole parallel with transformation, because of course, as we know, Pluto is between what empowers us and to find ourselves with powerlessness. So it's a matter of relinquishing what resources we've been exchanging with Pluto, perhaps, or what empowers us.
And maybe and redefining what power looks like.
I love it. Yes. And in this case, I will bring back that phrase with our pre-chat that Laura introduced, because it is a powerful season that we're having right now. We just had the eclipses. Pluto just went direct, but essentially, and with the nodes, with the relationship, Aries and Libra, it's about relationship with ourself and other. So it's this evolution of our lives. And what is it that personally or collectively we need to finish in Capricorn? What goals?
Right. In this last little bit here, right, we've all been living with this archetype since 2008. So what is needing to be finished up, right? And this idea that I always sort of use as an analogy with retrograde with clients is that last pass after it's gone direct. I think about sort of like when you're sweeping the floor and you have like that last little bit that you have to do to actually clean the floor, right? You sweep it, and then there's sort of that finishing up.
Yeah.
And so what is it that we, with this archetype around power, around transformation, around evolution and change, individually and collectively, are we still needing to give some attention to in this last period before the Pluto transitions into Aquarius for 2 decades?
Well, let's see what this Sabian adds to that. Sabian symbols, their imageries, their metaphors. It's on a spiritual basis. It started in 1925 with Elsie Wheeler and Mark Edmund Jones, and it rounds up to the next one. And I know it's confusion for people, but the fact is that because it's 0 to 29, if it rounds up, it's 1 to 30. So here it is, 30 degrees Capricorn. Let's see what it says, and we'll have some conversation about it. And this is really from Dane Ruchar, who has interpreted many of them. But it's because there's different people that are expressing the same idea, but it's directors at a large firm meet in secret conference. And in one explanation further is to say that that's how that assumption of the responsibility of making choice and with discussions for those that share this power. Do you want to make a comment, or should we go on to the next slide? Okay.
I think there's a couple things that we could say there. If you want to toggle
go back. Okay, sure.
Right. So there we go. Right. So what does that say? So it could be ominous, right? There's different ways of interpreting that, right? That people meeting in secret could be ominous.
I know.
right? And people in power meeting in secret and have an ominous quality to it. But it may also be, right, if we think about this in relation to Capricorn and Saturn and time, perhaps another way of looking at this is that it's doing things in secret or in the shadows because from a timing perspective, and it's not yet time for what's being discussed to be revealed. And so it has to remain secret until it is the appropriate time, the information or the idea or the change to come to light.
Excellent. That's a very appropriate way that expands on it, because some of these describe it, as you say, it's ambiguous, and yet the secrecy could be just as two friends talking to each other because it's private. They think, and then it gets expanded on. They have something to develop and present. Sean, shall we go on, or go ahead?
Well, the keynote piece I think is really great, because Capricorn embodies responsibility as well. And here and taking responsibility for things does give you the power to change them. And I think that's a key piece here with the final throes of Pluto and Capricorn. Like, what did we not take responsibility for so we can move forward? Oh, well, here Pluto's going to show us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And both of you, this is really a beautiful way to thread it together, because everybody could chatter about anything, but yet why are they? Is that intention? And that's what I was wondering about. Is secrecy and intention? No, it's that assumption of power, of responsibility. Just thinking of our forefathers, that, it was a small group of people that worked on that. So a little extension, there's always a key word that is kind of culminated, and it's a long paragraph in Mandala of if you can find that online, which is very simple for Dane Ruchar. But executive power. So he says amassing soul energies for an emergency. He also expressed that in his book, Astrology of Personality, besides the Mandala book. And Burgess, who's a student more current, has a wonderful way of expressing it. And he says, accepting the need for high-level management of collective affairs. So I guess if you're going to have a group, you can't. Democracy does vote our representatives. I suppose that kind of is part of it too.
Well, if we think, this is the very end of Capricorn, that likes things linear, that likes things hierarchical, that likes things ordered, right? And so likes to be in charge, right? So of course it's the upper level management, it's the executives, it's the presidents, VPs, right? That of an organization that ideally that they're coming from a place of integrity, right? That's the rub.
Thank you.
Whether or not they're operating with integrity. They could have authority and not have integrity, or they could have authority and have integrity.
Always an issue. And I'm remembering with Sabians, there's this whole idea of it evolves from one phase to the next stage, from zero Aries all the way to the very end of Pisces. And so coming up next will be one Aquarius, which I didn't include, but this is what we're working on, I suppose, with and it is in front of us. We have a presidential election. That's about as high as the top of the ladder you can get here. And
I think globally, right, there have been more national elections throughout the planet than like any other time in history, right? So we take it out of our myopic, American-centric view. Like, this has been going on globally.
I like that. I appreciate that. A very wonderful, and as you've said, infamous quote, Margaret Mead, the great...
she was an anthropologist.
Yes, I remember reading that as a small child. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, and that goes along with the integrity, committed integrity, not students, but citizens, can change the world. And then adds, indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. sort of a remarkable comment. Well, Pluto has a 248-year cycle from one sign to its, as it goes through the 12 signs. And the last time it was in Capricorn was from January 7th, 1762. So our podcast people can hear this, to January 26th, 1778. And the current one was as of early January 25th, 2008, till this year in November 19th, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting that first swath of Capricorn, going back to the 1762, 1778 dates. And I think about the formation of the United States during that time. I don't know how many people know about like the first elections, so to speak, but it was only 6% of the population that actually voted, and you had to be a landowner.
Yeah.
And it was mostly white landowners that made that vote, and it was only 6%. It took forever for the population to really have a voice. I mean, it wasn't until the women's right to vote, which was really recently.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Civil War, changed that to some expression, because with its removal of slavery, thankfully, Black men could also gain land. And it is interesting that although it was only 6%, which is shocking, the good news, I learned this from a Spanish class, that it did open the door like a slippery slope, that if you owned land, you could vote. Although, as you say, it took women the final measure in the, what was it, the 20s or the 30s?
1920.
Yeah. With Susan B. Anthony and all the rest.
Well, she was before. She didn't even ever get the right to vote.
I know. It's my namesake. I remember that. Let's fight for causes.
So here we are at the end now of this cycle with Pluto and Capricorn yet again. And I wonder really, like, what is on the other side of this Pluto direct for its last time in Capricorn, and how that will affect us from a cultural standpoint here, at least in this country, Anyway, that's just going back. It just really was fascinating to me. It's been fascinating over this last retrograde cycle, and to see how all the executives, if you will, have behaved, and to see, some of the scandals that have come out over things, and some of the
Pluto. Yeah.
And then some of the advances in technology as we kind of usher in this final breath of Capricorn and move into Aquarius. And of course, my fingers on the pulse of those of the tech things and the developments in AI. If you thought they were great 10 months ago, a year ago, they're incredible now. It's scary.
With the media, social media, speaking of the techs, I know that with the last elections, there was so much criticism about false news and et cetera. And all I know is that I have a new panel that has to do about the elections, but we're not voting for one person or the other. It's just an astrological perspective. But when I tried to advertise, it was deleted because it went to the algorithms that it had to do about the elections. So now I notice, this is just to reference that the social media, how effective or helpful will be, I don't know, but you cannot make any new election ads like from now on. It's been for the last month, I guess, until elections. And if you do, you need to show proof of who you are, which didn't work online for me. I'd have to go to get notarized, which I did, but I decided to give it up because really I'm not doing anything on elections. I just wanted to promote my panel, and I can do that otherwise. So the heck with it. But I think the social media has made some Band-Aid attempts. I don't know, but it's interesting. They're executives, right? So I was commenting that, maybe there's some hope. We'll see.
Laura, you have any thoughts on this 248-year cycle? It's such a long time, none of us ever.
Yeah, none of us were around at least in these bodies. The last cycle. I think one of the things that was fascinating, because I was looking up, what happens because it seemed, I thought, unique that we got the last retrograde cycle only to 29 degrees. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, well, what did it do last time around? And it did the exact same thing almost to the day. October 12th was the last time it went direct in the 1700s, and it 11th here, right? So like literally, and almost to the day. And
it was in 14 minutes, right at the same
of
degree.
A different arc, almost to the day. Same with how far into Aquarius it got. It got in the 1700s. It was almost to 2 degrees. It was barely 2 degrees when it went retrograde this time around. And so that idea, and that we give a lot of attention to this 29 degree in general, right? This energetic degree as astrologers, we tend to pay attention to as this unstable, lots of change. Like it's this, in some ways, I think of the energetic degree a bit like avoid a course moon, right? In terms of that, it's not quite changed, but it is about to energy. I don't know if you've seen the sand imagery with sound, right? Where they put sand on the speaker and it creates a fractal, and then they change the tone, and it doesn't just immediately change the fractal, it gets completely chaotic, and then the new one emerges.
Good.
And so that 29 degrees is sort of that completely chaotic sand right before then it shifts into Aquarius and we get the new imagery. And so the instability that we give that 29 degree sign in general, regardless of planet, where it's natally from a mundane perspective, that it is so much about change. And that period of time in the 1700s, I was trying to, everything is about the Revolutionary War. When you try to Google what was going on then, it's like specific battles that you get. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting that I found on one site was it was the beginning of what they believe was right around then of the Culper spies, which was the spy network set up during the Revolutionary War to defeat the British, which is very Plutonian.
Right.
And that it's an organization that's secretive, which feels very Pluto and Capricorn, right? That it's this Pluto energy that has that scorpionic secretive energy, but then it's in Capricorn, so it's super structured.
Yeah.
And very organized, and there's a hierarchy. And then, and so that, and I think it's interesting also to think about how this particular one, right, is landing just outside of the eclipse season. And so, which always bring up hidden things anyway, right? So this continued energy.
Quite a period of time. Yes, that season. Of
stuff being revealed, of secrets, because it's been hitting this point a lot, right? It's gone retrograde and direct and retrograde and direct. So lots of stuff over the last couple of years coming to light.
Thank you.
That may have been going on in the 1700s. It's just hard to find a lot of reference.
Well, we'll continue to talk about that, and it's an excellent question. Let's look at our last 6 minutes here before 4 minutes before we go away for a little break. Let's look at these two charts. Now, this is 1778 when Pluto was direct at 29 degrees, 24 minutes of Capricorn. Thank you. Yeah, you caught my, yes. And that was October 12th, 1778. And for the podcast people, it was at 3:30 at 43 seconds a.m. in Philadelphia. And we're comparing it on the outside with Pluto direct at 29:38 minutes in Capricorn in this year, October 11, 2024. And that happens to be in Washington, D.C. as the capital changed. And that is 8:31:46 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I highlighted a few. Pluto, of course, is conjunct, as we know, with the arrow. But we're also having this Chiron return, which we've had 5. This is the 5th one. And it started in April 21st, and it's going to be in November, and then it'll be in January again. So it's this huge time which looks at presidency and our identity. It's in Capricorn. And then Jupiter at the top is transiting conjunct Uranus. Talk about chaos. Here we go. And then again, the suns, of course, are like a solar return. So
what really sticks out to me in this chart is not Jupiter per se, although it's prevalent, but it's really the grand square that Mars brings into focus here in this chart. Goody. Yeah, because we got Mars square Sun, square Chiron, and opposed by sign Pluto. And it's I think it really shakes things up and maybe even brings maybe a little bit more fervor. Mars in Virgo is really, where it was in 1778. It's like, okay, all my energy is focused on getting it done, the task done, all the little things, all the details, making sure they're all in line. Or Mars in Cancer, and maybe Laura, the Cancer Laura there, can speak to that better than I can.
It's what safety and protection.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah. Sean, you're onto it. Cause I kept looking at Mars, and I was thinking, and I didn't. Yeah. Perfect.
Well, right. I mean, just really simply, because I think we need to take a break, but the strategy of Mars in Virgo in the 1700s, as opposed to Mars in Cancer, which is emotionally driven. Right.
Yes.
And so emotionally reactive, as opposed to there's a logic. Well, I'll take action if I know what I'm doing. Where am I going? What's the plan? Mars in Virgo wants the spreadsheet, wants the plan, wants the map.
Yeah.
Right. And Mars in Cancer can just be in reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so. In some ways, it's a more volatile Mars this time around than they had in the 1700s.
And very ruled by the moon. It's so almost mercurial, it changes. It's in a phase of processing. It's in this huge processing factor. And then you get very personal. People begin to feel like it's either personal about me or they're defending what is personal. So what has been established, but hopefully if it's going to go to the moon, it'll go to our natal moon in Aquarius, which Aquarius can use some emotion, but yet it is more objective.
Well, it is that 11th house, so
yeah, there you go.
Element to it.
Well, we will take us a quick getaway. You can go refill your coffees or kombucha or tea, whatever you have, and come back with Dr. Laura Tad and Sean Kelly and myself on this really intriguing, dynamic Pluto and Capricorn. See you very soon. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Libra, ruled dually by Venus. By leaving the lower hemisphere of the self, the energy of Libra enters the arena where the completed self meets the other than self to form a relationship based on partnership. As a cardinal air sign on the descendant angle, represented by the equinox of equal light, Libra's energy learns through comparison and relationships, with the intention to integrate duality and polarities.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to NewProSupplements.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, October 20th, it's Best Neuroenergetic Balancing, Rasmussen Reset, and Energy Code Sunday. Dr. Nels Rasmussen and Sister Linda Rasmussen join us. Together, they'll take your phone calls and help you or your animal friends with emotional, behavioral, or physical issues. Hope you can join us and plan to call in. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Bringing good vibes to the Puget Sound and the world. Alternative Talk 1150.
Hi, we are back. I think we lost. Oh, good. There's Sean. Okay, we are going to go ahead. Again, you can find Sean Kelly at Evolutionary Astro. You can find Dr. Laura Tad at Mythic Sky and myself at Talk Cosmos. Laura, tell us about this great retreat. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so I'm co-running a retreat with a dear friend of mine. Again, this will be the third year I've helped her with it. So next year, February 22nd through the 1st of March. We call it the Goddess Awakening Retreat. It's really a week on the sacred feminine. You do yoga every morning, have amazing, yummy food made by lovely local women right on the beach, on the edge of the jungle. So there's howler monkeys you get woken up to and baby turtles on the beach. And I run different workshops on astrology and myth and meditation. And then the afternoons are usually free time because it gets too hot. So people can go to the jungle to go ziplining or surf lessons by a Nicaraguan Olympic surfer. And so lots of fun things. And so we've got spaces still available and it's absolutely gorgeous down there. So,
and they can go to your Mythic Sky and find out more about it.
You go to my website, you can register there. Yeah.
Cool.
Or direct you to the website to register.
Sean, I know you're speaking in November. Perhaps you want to mention about that.
Sure. I'm taking a trip down to Arizona from Northern California and going to be speaking at the Tucson Astrologers Guild. It's hosted by Susie Cox, who's one of those legends out there in astrology. And I'll be speaking actually on the first 30 or the last 30 years of astrology and its evolution in modern culture. Of course, they've had a big hand in that, as well as being a participant in that with the publishers I've worked with in my life. And then we'll be doing it's going to be like Astro Jam on the second night, which is an astro drama. Of course, Susie has a whole rooms full of costumes, and she'll have everybody play out, put the costume on and wear a placard that says like what the sign and planet they're representing is. And so it looks to be a lot of fun.
Oh, it will be. And a great, perfect time for those northern states to come down for a little visit. So check out Tucson Astrologers Guild and have some fun. It's so dynamic, that astro drama, which Astro Jam, and Sean's a member of that. Myself, I have videos featuring myself, a playlist. And if you want to catch it, whoops, I didn't quite. But anyway, there's different information about last year World Astrology Day. There's a short eclipse video that is really just about the transformational change, and an ongoing part that I have as a guest with Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea about the dwarf planets. Go to Talk Cosmos. You can find out about this season. We have the fall equinox, whole period of time until winter, that's on a vibrational astrology focus, which is fascinating. Linda Berry presents it, and that's the turning season panel. About the solar eclipse, of course, the archetypal symbols looks at all the new moons, and it happened to be the solar eclipse. And then Kaleidoscope Visions, that does the 4 major lunar focuses, involved that and gives a process, which we're still in. I think we just had a quarter moon on the 10th, and as of the 11th, the Pluto went direct, and then of course we have the full moon going ahead. Importantly, there is that new panel, U.S. Global Currents, and it's an astrological perspective. And the series we're doing is 24 U.S. elections. And we're speaking about the swing states. Not all of them, but what are the dynamics? How can we understand the U.S. a little bit more and what might happen looking at these charts? That'll be next week. So thank you, everybody, for signing up and following us, keeping in touch with these wonderful events such as Planet Buzz. So let's go back to what you researched, Laura. The Pluto 29, 38 minutes current cycle. It's a 1.5 year period, and it's reflecting the 1770s Pluto Capricorn cycle. And it started in last year, March 6th, 2023, and we'll talk about this.
Yeah. So this is the, in and around in this last period of time when Pluto was at where it is currently, right? So it went retrograde twice. So it's now hit this point, five times. And it was fascinating doing some of this research because I didn't think so much of it would be about finance. And yet that was what was showing up like almost to the day, as you can see, over and over and over again. And because we don't tend to think of Capricorn and it doesn't govern money, right? We give that, but it's institutions that I think that's this thread. It's financial institutions and who is responsible for finances is this reoccurring thread. So we get last March a year ago, the Silicon Valley Bank, and there's somehow that ended up with a... I
know, I corrected those and I don't know why it didn't follow through. I saw that, sorry.
The main bank for a lot of tech startups in California, right? It was, nationally, even though the bank was in California, it was like the bank that tech startups were using. And it collapsed. And it was the largest bank fail since 2008, which if you recall from what we were talking about earlier, 2008 is when Pluto got into Capricorn.
Yeah.
And so again, like this institution of finance, right? So it's this, and people thought it was considered like the safest place to put your money. One of them, for people that had serious money were putting their money in these banks. And the institution went under. Then we get that June, the Supreme Court rules against Biden's administration for debt forgiveness for student loans. So again, this institution, it's also, I think, about the argument that was often being made of like, well, who's responsible? These people like myself took out the debt, therefore you're responsible for it. Capricorn governing responsibility.
Except the percentage is too high.
Well, no, I'm not. No.
I'm just adding that information because back in the early 70s, it was like 2% or something. It wasn't so high. I forget now exactly, but it was more.
Well,
I've heard that argument.
College,
it wasn't
your textbooks, but
taking advantage.
And then I put in the fact that with the Barbie movie, because of thinking about Capricorn and Pluto, which is not about the it was hugely successful financially, but that wasn't the piece I was thinking. But more so much, the movie was a commentary on the patriarchy, which,
yeah,
right. So that's where I was seeing this thread to the Pluto Capricorn. It was this hugely successful film that was largely making a commentary both on its how detrimental it's been to women, but also what it's done to men.
Yeah, exactly. It's
right.
Thank you for mentioning. Yes.
And then, so this past January in St. Paul, you had the first St. Paul, Minnesota, their entire city council, the whole government of the city of St. Paul are women. Every member of the governing the city are women. They swore on all of them that day, and 6 of the seven were women of color and under 40. So again, this piece around the patriarchy and Pluto and Capricorn transforming our relationship with that. Then just a week ago, right, we had the longshoremen strike, which again is dealing with the structure of money because the strike was entirely about being was about finances and job security, right? So very much that Capricornian energy, and not being phased out because of technology, which is what's on the horizon with Pluto moving into Aquarius. And then again, we get this second thing that Biden tried to put into place to help with student debt is defeated. It had been approved and then it was rejected.
Well, there's one more thing. It just recently happened. The Boeing just laid off 17,000 people.
Exactly. And it might have to go through bankruptcy.
That was over a strike as well that the union thought they were going to win, but Boeing shut it all down. And now all those people are without jobs, right?
Yeah.
So
yes. That's a good point. And
great
I did
research, Laura. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I was trying to correct a few little things there, but first I'll have to, don't know why it didn't come up. Well, we're going to go through these charts. And of course, we have quite a bit here, so we'll kind of keep moving. I'm just mentioning because I look at the clock. We have time. But this is the first one on March 6th. If something stands out, I just gave you the chart. But this is about the Silicon Valley Bank. Oh, maybe this is where I corrected it. But the main bank for the tech startups that collapsed.
Chiron conjunction in the second house looks pretty prevalent to me.
Yeah. Boy, there is little Aries stellium, isn't there? My goodness.
Yeah. Well, and then we get this anaretic degree again of Saturn in Aquarius. So we get this instability energy around structure, right? And that Aquarius being so much about tech, right? And so then all of the financing that so many tech companies were dependent upon now not being there.
And Mars, if I might say, is exactly on the United States. It's a Mars return. No,
that's where Jupiter is currently retrograde, right? So,
well, it might be, but I'm thinking because Uranus is at 8 degrees and Mars is at 21 degrees. So we were having a Mars return at this time too.
Interesting.
And I'm noticing that Uranus is at, I think, what they call the world point, because in the fixed signs, it's at the 15 degree. So it did. How do you interpret that? Well, it affected everybody. Yes, it was a global.
People that were very affected by that. Yes, absolutely.
Here we have the next when it was retrograde at 29 degrees 38 minutes, and that was on June 29th, 2023. Do I have that right? Right? Okay, thank you. And in the morning, it was 6:02:15 a.m. Eastern Time, Washington, D.C., for those people listening. So here it was a Supreme Court.
Yeah, and both times Biden's attempt to support people with their student loans was defeated. It was when Pluto was retrograde, which was interesting. It happened twice, right? It repeated as a pattern, but it also is the two retrogrades, which is interesting that is part, because it was reviewing it, right? Retrograde is going back over it, kept being challenged in the courts. So it is that review.
And it's where the nodes that were happened to be in Taurus and Scorpio,
which
all about finance.
This particular one is about finance, for sure, with that.
Yeah.
I think there's.
How would you see Barbie in here? I know I didn't take. This is like within a week of it or 10 days of it.
Yeah.
So
it'd be a little different. Yeah.
The nodes would be about the same, and the other, Pluto.
Well, Venus would have been a lot closer to Mars there. I think that was probably the Barbie movie thing. The integration of masculine and feminine on an equal level, and really calling out the inequality of it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a piece with that, because there was this other piece with Barbie. Yes, there's the part of it that's about the patriarchy, but it was like the highest grossing movie directed by a woman in history.
That's right. Venus and Mars. That's right. It was a big deal. Yes. And she did very well.
So that Pluto square, the nodes could be part of that, particularly given that they're in the signs we most associate with finance.
And right? Barbie and Ken, male, female.
Sure.
It was a whole, I'll have to watch that show. Okay. Then we go on to this year, early on January 9th, 2024, when again, it was direct at 29 degrees, 38 minutes in Capricorn. And in Washington, D.C., it was 12:15:39, that's 39 seconds, p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's when the first large U.S. city had all females in the city council. And I remember that I think Nancy Pelosi, or it was brought to attention, I think, politically that this.
Yeah, I mean, it made the news, right? Because it's so unusual, right? So that's part of it too, is like that's never happened before, or at least at a large scale. And so there's this revolutionariness to it too, of like, and the disruptive energy that 29th degree can have, of like, it's all women, mostly women of color, and all women under 40, right? So it's a completely new archetype coming in, right? That means, it's, if they're all under 40, then they're Pluto.
That's what I was thinking.
Scorpio generation.
Yes.
Or Pluto Sag generation.
Yes.
All of them.
Right. I love it.
And so that in itself is this hugely transformative, different energy that's come in. And that's when they're sworn in. It's not when they were elected, but
there were a lot of yods here. I mean, different energetic groups that a person could incorporate. I kind of want to keep going. Mm-hmm. Shall we keep?
Sure. Unless Sean's good.
Yeah, no, Sean. Yeah, okay. So here we are, October 6th, recent, just this month, when it went retrograde at that degree.
Retrograde right before it went direct.
Right, on the 11th. And of course, we brought up about the longshoremen, which thankfully, it was in 2 stages. They did agree on the wage, yet I think later in the year, in December, they'll decide on the second part of their, which is great because it would have really stopped the whole country. And what was the holidays coming up for all those people that make money off it? And I mean, it would have changed our economy a great deal. So I think
it really, really impacted the election. I think that was the driving force.
I agree. Yes,
resolved so fast.
Yeah. That secret bit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's part of that, right? This high-ranking people meeting in secret. It could be, board members meeting. Could be board members meeting with union leaders, right? That does sort of happen in the shadows. And then they both go back to their camps and say, okay, here's what we talked about. But the meetings are in secret. They have to be effective in some ways.
I will add, there are a great many yods. Now, a yod is a configuration, folks, that has 2 planets that are sextile. That's like a connected. They're 60 degrees apart. They're listening to each other and talking. Both of them are at this, what we call inconjunct, 150 degrees, quincunx, little astrology technology. But the fact is that they have to, it's more than adjustment. They have to really learn how to work with that other energy. It's a learning process. Mm-hmm. And here we have Saturn as one of the focal points, the moon, along with Venus at another focal point. You'll see the green. We don't have time to really talk about all these energies, but this one is just packed. It also has the opposition, with Mars in a T-square. It's actually, with Chiron. It's a packed.
It's a packed chart for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And that Mars really stands out to me again, Mars. It really does in that square. And I especially with with that kind of pile up in Libra there. You know, you know, squaring that little stellium of harmony, you know, and here comes Mars, like, you know, and Mars is like, look, it's about nurturing and caring. And, you know, if you think about the big food chain and thing, the longshoremen and things, those guys are like the uncelebrated, unthanked people that don't get really any nurturing. They, you know, get a basic check that's not even worth, you know, really what they do. It's really, anyway, that's what was really eye-opening to me about this chart. Saturn and Pisces with that trine to Mars supporting it, you know, also plays out for me.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and that, I mean, with that square that it's so tightly squared, I mean, almost to the minute, right? Looks like it's 1 minute off of a square to Mercury.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, I mean, part of how I look at squares is it's what's unavoidable, right? It's not good or bad. It's neutral in terms of the energy. It's just unavoidable, I say to the grand square man in the room. But it's that, so we have to, our actions have to have that nurturing, and our words have to be taken the other into consideration. There's no avoiding it with that square.
Beautiful.
It's probably part of what allowed it to be resolved so fast, was that there was this absolute, like, it was unavoidable that you took the other person's opinions or thoughts or needs, I think in particular with the Cancer, into consideration in the negotiation.
And the moon and Venus are in Scorpio. So if you're looking at both Libra, looking at Venus, and Mars looking at the moon, that's a strong force. In Scorpio, they very clearly are saying, hey, we don't have the power. We need the power. And we don't have the power because your resources are need revision. Yeah. Here we have a couple of slides. This one, I don't think we'll look at too much. It is one, because we have a bi-wheel that shows this next. But this is Pluto ingress in Capricorn on January 25th, 2008 at 9 p.m. That was 9:37 p.m. and 14 seconds in Washington, D.C. Unless you want to.
It's just nuts to think about what was going on in the world. Like that was, you know,
huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So here we have this bi-wheel from that date, and then again on November 19th, when it finally is finishing, and the next second after this, it goes into Aquarius, because I go down in this second.
Well, I think the first, I mean, you've circled it. To me, the thing that is fascinating is the Venus return.
Oh, you're so right. Yes.
That's fascinating, because then again, it becomes so much about value, about what do we need? What do we need to feel secure in Capricorn in particular, right? I mean, we can think of Venus as what we need for financial and physical security in general, but in Capricorn, that just gets amplified like crazy. Wow. Right. Yep. And so, like, what do we, our financial security, but also our basic needs being met or not?
Let's look at this one too. We have about 3 minutes, because there are thoughts that people can look at with my notes. But this one is from 1776, our Sibley chart. And I just received a new book that sort of indicated it could be prior to this time, but we're going to stay with the Sibley, 5:10 p.m., Philadelphia, July 4th, 1776. And the outside, again, when it went direct, which is just a couple of days ago on October 11th. And here, what thoughts we might have, I am saying that we have a Chiron returning and pending. You know, remember, there's going to be 3 of them. We had one in April, and next one in November, and then next one in January. Saturn's different.
Well, I mean, to Sean's point earlier, like Mars is showing up all over the place with this too. We get Mars conjunct Mercury, Jupiter conjunct Mars.
Yeah.
Right. So, again, Mars showing up is a big theme.
How we take it overall.
Yeah. Oh, and here, just for the clincher, we have Georgia State on January 2nd, 1788, that it became a state in Augusta, and the elections. And here people can look at this, but there's a Jupiter return. Mars is on.
New moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Given what's going on here in Georgia, I think,
we'll have to keep this for this
interesting player in the election.
I'll use this for our swing states next week. Thank you, Laura. I love it. Well, you people are the best. I just thank you so much. This is, we'll have to repeat this in 2025. We'll get our topics and come back for your perspectives. Well, folks, I guess we have more to do. There's positive. I think Mars is getting our rear in action, right? We'll bless you. We'll work on the positive.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.